A woman screamed when she found a lifeless German Shepherd puppy frozen in her backyard. Its tiny body was stiff, its eyes shut, its breath gone. But just as she prepared to say goodbye, something happened that no one expected, a miracle that would leave her trembling in shock. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Clara tightened her robe around her shoulders as she carried a mug of coffee to the back porch, expecting nothing more than the usual quiet. But halfway across the yard, she froze. Her eyes locked onto a small, dark shape lying in the snow. At first, she thought it was just a pile of leaves or maybe a discarded coat. But then, the faint outline of paws made her heart skip. Setting the mug aside, she hurried closer, her pulse pounding louder with every step. There, crumpled against the icy ground, was a tiny German Shepherd puppy. Its body was motionless, fur sprinkled with frost. Clara gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. It looked heartbreakingly lifeless. Clara dropped to her knees, the cold biting through her slippers as her trembling hands reached for the tiny body. The pup's fur was stiff with frost, his ears drooping, his tongue lolling helplessly against the snow. His little frame looked far too fragile for the harshness of winter, like a candle snuffed out before its time. Her heart broke as she gathered him into her arms. His body was icy cold, heavier than it should have felt, as if the life had already slipped away. Clara's eyes blurred with tears. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, stroking the frozen fur. "Who could have done this to you?" The thought of someone abandoning such an innocent creature in the bitter cold filled her chest with rage and sorrow. For a long, aching moment, silence pressed down on her backyard. The world seemed to hold its breath. She cradled the motionless pup close to her chest, already mourning a life that seemed lost. In her mind, the word kept repeating, "Gone." But as her tears fell onto his fur, something inside her whispered to wait, that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. Clara knelt in the snow, rocking the still puppy in her arms, whispering apologies to a life she thought had slipped away. She brushed flakes of frost from his tiny muzzle, her tears streaking down onto his fur. Just as she pressed her lips to his head in a final goodbye, something faint stirred against her palm. Her breath caught. She stilled completely, afraid. She had imagined it. But then, it happened again. The tiniest flutter beneath his ribs, followed by the faintest twitch of a paw. Clara gasped, eyes widening. "No, no, you're not gone," she whispered urgently, hope flooding her chest. Leaning closer, she pressed her ear against his fragile body. There it was, a shallow breath, weak and broken, but real. Her hands shook violently as relief and panic collided. The puppy wasn't dead, not yet. He was fighting, clinging to life in the cruel cold. Clara tightened her hold, tears spilling faster. "Stay with me, little one. Don't you dare give up," she begged. For the first time since stepping into the backyard, the crushing grief lifted. Replacing it was a fragile spark of determination. She wasn't about to let him slip away without a fight. Clara bolted back into the house, clutching the fragile puppy as though every second could steal him away. She rushed to the living room, grabbing the thickest blanket she could find and wrapping him tightly, leaving only his tiny nose exposed. His body was still frighteningly cold, stiff against her chest. She filled a basin with warm, not hot, water, dipping a cloth and pressing it gently against his paws and belly. "Come on, sweetheart," she pleaded, rubbing him with careful urgency. She placed him against her own body, using her warmth to shield him from the chill that had nearly claimed his life. Minutes felt like hours. The silence was agonizing, broken only by Clara's whispered encouragements. She rubbed his chest in small circles, repeating the same desperate words. "Breathe, please, just breathe." At last, a faint, fragile sound escaped the puppy's throat, a weak whimper that made her heart leap. It was proof he was still fighting. For Clara, that single sound was enough to ignite her determination. She wasn't going to let him go. Clara grabbed her phone with shaking hands, her voice breaking as she dialed the nearest veterinary clinic. "Please, you have to help me," she cried, her words tumbling out in panic. "It's a puppy. He was freezing outside. He's not breathing right. I don't know how much longer he has." On the other end, the receptionist's calm but urgent tone instructed her to bring the puppy immediately. Without wasting a heartbeat, Clara wrapped the fragile pup in a second blanket, cradling him close to her chest. She dashed to her car, her slippers crunching against the frozen driveway. Sliding into the driver's seat, she started the engine, heat blasting at full strength, though it felt useless against the icy terror gripping her heart. The drive was a blur. She kept glancing down at the small bundle in her lap, whispering, prayers between sobs. "Hold on, little one. Just a few more minutes. Don't give up now." Beside her, the passenger seat carried nothing but silence, every tick of the clock like a warning. The clinic lights finally appeared in the distance, glowing like a beacon of hope. Clara pressed harder on the gas. Clara burst through the clinic doors, clutching the tiny bundle against her chest. "Help him," she cried, her voice raw with desperation. A nurse rushed forward, guiding her to an exam room where the vet, a middle-aged man with kind but weary eyes, stood waiting. He gently lifted the puppy from her arms, laying him on the sterile table under the bright examination light. The vet pressed his stethoscope against the pup's frail chest, listening intently. His frown deepened. "Severe hypothermia," he muttered grimly. "His temperature is dangerously low, and his breathing is shallow. He's weak, too weak." Clara's stomach knotted as his words sank in. She gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. "We'll do everything we can," the vet assured, signaling the nurse to bring warming pads and 4 fluids. Yet his tone carried the weight of doubt, and Clara heard it. Tears streamed down her face as she bent over the little German shepherd, whispering, "You're not alone. Please fight." Machines beeped softly as the clinic team worked with quiet urgency. Clara's heart pounded as she realized the truth. The puppy's life now hung by the thinnest thread, and miracles don't come easy. Hours dragged on inside the small clinic, each minute feeling like an eternity. Clara sat in the corner, hands clasped tightly, whispering silent prayers. The puppy lay beneath layers of warm blankets, hooked up to fluids, his tiny chest rising in uneven, fragile breaths. The room was filled with the soft hum of machines and the quiet determination of the vet and his team. Then, just as hope seemed to be slipping away, a sound pierced the silence, a faint whimper. Clara shot up from her chair, her eyes wide. The vet leaned closer, pressing his hand against the pup's tiny body. "He's fighting," he murmured, astonishment flickering across his face. Slowly, the German shepherd pup's eyelids fluttered, revealing tired but unmistakably alive eyes. Clara's tears spilled freely as she reached forward, touching his paw. The vet shook his head in disbelief. "This shouldn't be possible, but he's coming back." Against every odd, the lifeless puppy had stirred, proving that sometimes, even in the coldest darkness, life finds a way to shine. Clara carried the puppy home days later, his small body now warm, his eyes brighter with each passing hour. She had named him Chance, because that's exactly what he had been given, a second chance at life. The once lifeless bundle now bounded clumsily across her backyard, yipping with joy where he had nearly died. As Clara watched him play, her heart swelled with gratitude. The miracle was real. She hadn't just saved a puppy, she had gained a companion. Chance stopped, wagged his tail, and barked toward her as if to say thank you. This time, hope filled the air.